What is happening, guys? Welcome back. It is El Scorchio in Vermont this week, like 95 degrees outside with a real feel of like way over 100, like 105. I'm from England. I am not built for this, but I thought ahead. I put an AC in the window, so it's nice and cool in the shop, means I can still work out here. And if you're not already subscribed, please consider it. It's you guys that keep me motivated to keep working on these things. So if you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button, drop me a comment. I'm always down to chat. Give me a thumbs up if you like the content and share it with your friends. And yeah, it's been a little while since I've had a chance to work on the Rabbit. Had a bunch of stuff going on, had some contractors at my house clearing a bunch of land. We went up to Montreal for the Formula One a couple of weekends ago with my wife. That was super fun. One of the best races, I think, in Formula One in the last few years. The weather made things really interesting and exciting. And my wife also got a new car. We picked up a Porsche Macan S for her, which I had to get delivered up from Georgia, of all places. That was like the only one I could find in the spec she wanted. It checked all of the boxes, so working through that process too. But yeah, it means we can finally get back on with the Rabbit. I said at the end of the last video I got some unboxing to do, so we'll get to that. And 3 things I want to accomplish in this video. First one is front sway bar. Second one is a tie rod flip kit. And the third thing is some ball joint extenders. Now, if you know these vehicles, you know exactly why I'm doing these modifications. For those of you that don't, I'm gonna show you why I'm doing those things in just a second. But if you remember at the end of the last video, I was having a little issue with the seatbelt receiver on the seat. I made like a temporary fix just to get it to work, but the way those wire cables came up, they kind of were clunky. It would interfere with each other. You know, if there was someone sat in the passenger seat, really difficult to get the belts on and off. So I came up with a quick solution to that. So we'll drop that in as well. Then we'll get to some unboxing. Okay, so here's my solution for that seatbelt bracket. Start off with a 3/16 6-inch bracket, corner bracket. You can pick these up from any hardware store pretty much. They come with some pre-drilled holes, which is pretty nice. I did open these holes up just a little bit to fit the M10 bolts. I think they're M10 bolts. Yep, M10 bolts. So cut off the excess, and then that's gonna bolt something like that to the base of the seat. And yeah, I went for this type of design instead of trying to make something bespoke. For what I need, this is going to work perfectly until I can get those nice Recaro seats in and just use the factory location on the seat base for the seat belt. So let's get this in. And there we have him in the car. Okay, here I am lying down, face down on my floor, because this is why we need to install the tie rod flip kit and the ball joint extenders. Now, I need to show you this on the ground. What we're looking at right here is we're looking at the left front from behind the wheel, and this right here is the lower control arm. You can see the angle of that from where it mounts to the car to where it mounts to the hub is angled upwards, and I want to go even lower with this car eventually, which means that that angle will increase even more. And with that type of geometry on the front end, they just don't handle that great. So by extending the ball joints down, you level out the control arm, but then you also need to flip the tie rod. So the tie rod is what connects the steering rack to the hub, means you can steer left and right. The angle of the tie rod and the angle of that lower control arm need to be pretty even. So I can't remember if it currently bolts in from the top or the bottom. I think it's the bottom, and then you have a kit that means you can install it from the top. It's one of the two, I can't remember, but when we get it up on the lift, we'll take a look. Basically, you flip it from whatever it is, which realigns all that geometry and means that the car will handle a little bit better being this low to the ground. So that's why I'm doing the flip kit and the ball joint extenders to help fix some of that geometry from driving low. And the reason why I'm doing the sway bar is because from the factory, this thing with the diesel engine did not have a sway bar. Didn't really need one. They weren't shooting for performance, but with it being much lower, with that VR6 in the front, quite a heavy engine, tends to get quite nose heavy. With no sway bar on those lower control arms, it pitches a lot side to side going around corners. So gonna put on that front sway bar, hopefully level it out through the corners, and it should handle much better. So this is the front sway bar kit from a company called Autotech. The reason why I went with this kit is it came with everything that I need. So new brackets, mounts, bushings, and it comes with this template to drill the holes to mount the sway bar to that control arm. Got the tie rod flip kit, that's an eBay special, came from somewhere in Europe. And these are the ball joint extenders. So factory ball joint goes on the bottom and kind of raises the height of that. These were from a company called Autoworx. So that's what's on the table for this episode. Let's get these installed. Might be another week or so till this video gets out to you guys, just because it might take me a little while, a few days to get this done. So bear with me. Apologies ahead of time for the delay, but I want to get this all on before this video goes out. So let's get into it. So I'm underneath the car, as you can see, and I have this new sway bar kind of loosely hanging in its position. So these are the mounts that hold the back of the control arm on. So I got new ones of those. That's what clamps that in. And then you can see up here where the bar bolts to the bottom of here. Got to drill a couple of holes from that template to attach it. Original control arm bracket comes off, new one goes on with the extra tab for the sway bar. Same on this side. Now on this side, you take a look right up through there, you can see a couple of fuel lines that come kind of from the back of the car. They loop around and they squeeze right through that gap right there. Now, because this is a non-GTI car, didn't have a sway bar from the factory, so what you actually have to do is kind of loosen all those fuel lines up and bend them a little bit, manipulate them to go in that little gap between the bracket. And I have a couple extra wires. I have a wire here and a hose right here. I think that goes to the charcoal canister. That's my wiring for the fuel pump. So I just took those on the outside because there wasn't enough room to get all four of those through that little hole. So that's kind of the first thing you have to do. And these don't go together very easily. Just kind of a bad design, really. Everything's really tight. Doesn't want to go together, but I guess that's what you get with 50-year-old technology. So a lot of kind of loosening the bolts, tightening the bolts, getting the sway bar in place, but it is finally in place. Next thing I need to do is drill the holes in the bottom of the control arm. So you can see the two little silver dots. I use the template to mark the dots. So I'm gonna drill those holes, and I think at the same time I'm gonna drop the control arms out the bottom of the hub so I can put the ball joint extenders in. So that's where we're at. Let's keep cracking on. finished drilling those holes underneath on the control arm. They line up with the bracket pretty nicely. And you will have seen in that time lapse, I cleaned a little bit. I sprayed everything down with some WD-40 so the ball joint and the tie rod end will come out nicely. Yeah, pretty sweet working on a car from California. I said it before and I'll say it again. Everything comes apart pretty easily, no rust, which is very nice. You'll see I got that ball joint extender on. You can see basically it drops the bottom of the control arm down away from the hub. And I can't bolt the sway bar in yet because I need to do the other side because this thing rotates and articulates together. And then you will see as well, if I zoom back a little bit, the control arm is now on an angle down, but the tie rod for the steering is very even. Now, that difference in the geometry when you're driving will make it handle like trash, basically. So let's get on with flipping the tie rod so we can fix that. So tie rod is out, just started drilling out the hole for the bigger bushing. If you see what I did there, this was in the top like that, and it needs to be flipped to the underside to match the angle of the control arm. And you can see this is tapered. So we need to drill out the hole. And we can slide this bushing in, like so. Flip the tie rod from the underside and then put a bolt on the top. Now, if you saw how I got this off, I took the castle nut off. I then used the same size thread pitch on a bigger nut. I put it on upside down so I had this nice flat area to hit against. And then I just lifted the rubber boot a little bit, sprayed some WD-40 in, hit it with a hammer from underneath, and it popped right out.
2 days later.
All right, it is another new day out in the shop working on the Rabbit. Just keep getting delayed these last few days here. I start a job, something comes up, so I have to kind of hit the pause button. Yeah, drilling out the hole in the knuckle for the tie rod flip. You can see I'm about halfway through that. You need quite an array of drill bits. So the hole needs to be, I think, 11/16. So you have to work your way up from a 1/2 inch to what, like 9/16, a 5/8, then the 11/16. So I'm working my way through that. The drill I have, everybody's favorite Ryobi, only has a 1/4 inch chuck on it, which is too small for those drill bits. The hammer drill I have is a hand-me-down from my father-in-law. That's pretty much a piece of crap. Doesn't really work. It's just a POS. So I have some extra drill bits. I have this chuck adapter, which will go in a 1/4 inch drill or an impact. So hopefully I can get this knuckle drilled out, can flip this tie rod. We can do it all again on the other side, and then we get to do the fun bit of taking this thing out for a rip. Oh, one other thing I have to do is probably gonna have to do a little eyeball alignment just to get the wheels pointing straight enough. So I'll walk you through that as well when we get to that. But for now, I gotta keep on drilling out this knuckle.
Many unbearable hours later.
All right, many hours later, the tie rod flip is in. Sorry, I didn't film actually putting the bushing in, but you can see it right there. Had to use a different nut. The flange wasn't big enough to cover the end of the bushing, so that flange nut that I used to take it off, I used. You can see this one doesn't have a flange on the bottom. And then the one that came with the kit I guess was designed for a different thread of a ball joint. Of course, I can't find it. There it is. So you can see, much bigger thread pitch on the one they sent me the kit, which is a little bit disappointing, but I made it work. It's in. Now I just gotta do the other side. And top tip for you, when I drilled the hole out, the bushing didn't slide right in. So I put the bushings in the freezer for a couple hours while I had dinner, and that's just gonna shrink the metal just a little bit. That bushing slid right in. So top tip, if you're ever trying to make two metals in a bushing slide together and they just won't go, heat one up, cool one down, and they should go together a little smoother. So that's what the hole looks like cleaned up. Let's go get that bushing out of the freezer.
The following day.
It is another new day working on this thing. I am so over this job right now. First time in a while that I've just not wanted to work on this car. A little bit frustrating, but I'm determined today to finish up this sway bar, ball joint extension, and tie rod flip install. So I've just started working on the car for the day. I managed to get the bushing in. You can see that looks pretty sweet, pretty clean. Now, for some reason, this side just didn't drop in like the other side did. You know, the other side, I drilled out the hole, cooled the bushing down in the freezer, and it popped right in. And as soon as it started to warm up, it had a nice snug press fit in there. This one, for some reason, I don't know if the bushing's bigger, if the drill bit wore down a little bit, I don't know. But this one was just super tight, didn't want to go in, and I don't want to force it, because if you force these bushings in, there's a chance you could crack, you know, the knuckle, because you're removing material from the knuckle. So obviously don't want to crack the cast knuckle. So had to bust out the Dremel just to kind of grind the inside of that hole a little bit, and with a small bit of persuasion with a hammer, that bushing finally went in. Trying to do this with one hand so I could film it in real time. A 19 mil. Okay, I'll double check that's nice and snug, but looks like the tie rod flip's finally done. Heck yes, let's move on to the ball joint extenders. Just got to drill a couple of holes for the sway bar links, and then we can get this thing back on the ground, give it a quick alignment, and finally take it for a drive. Okay, it really is one thing after another with this thing. Everything's installed except for the end links for the sway bar. I snugged up the ball joints, I snugged up the tie rod ends. However, my floor jack decided to break. Usually what I do is I jack the control arm up from the bottom to sit the end link in the control arm, but my jack decided to break, so that's not an option. So I'm gonna have to put the wheels on, lower it down, and just use the weight of the car to lift the control arms a little bit so that those sway bar brackets drop into the holes, because you can see the angles is not quite lined up, but with weight on the vehicle to level out the control arm, they should drop right in. Like I said, one thing after another with this car. I'm kind of over it, to be honest. It's kind of disappointing because it's the first time I've felt like I've not wanted to work on this car and I just want to push it into a corner and not even look at it. So yeah, a little bit of disappointment, sour taste in my mouth, but there's hope yet. Hopefully I can get this done and start driving it again and it puts a smile on my face, but I just want to get this job done. All right, there we have it, folks. This thing is back on the ground. The wheels are on. I managed to get those sway bar brackets bolted to the lower control arm. I did have to lower the car down onto its wheels just to level out those control arms. I had to tweak the brackets a little bit, put a couple of little bends in them just to drop in, but they dropped in, bolted up, and yeah, we did an eyeball alignment too. So let me show you how I do that real quick. It's pretty self-explanatory. I just do it by eye. And what I do is I sit here at the front of the car and I try and line up the rim of the back wheel with the rim of the front wheel. And what I'm aiming for is just as the rear rim, the front bit of the rim, levels out with the back of the rim, and then looking at the front wheel just to see a little bit of toe in. So I do that on both sides. Kind of like so. Very hard to capture on camera, but you get the idea. And basically, all I'm looking for is the smallest amount of toe in on the front wheels. Yeah, one day I'll get this on an alignment right, but for now, that'll do. I know there's going to be the suspension changes coming down the line, so no point paying to get an alignment just yet. But yeah, let me tidy up the shop and we'll go take this thing for a test drive. Fingers crossed it handles well and it drives well, because I've spent like 2 weeks working on this. So if it doesn't make a difference, I'm going to be disappointed, but only one way to find out. All right, first test drive. Let's see how this thing feels. Steering already feels a little better. I feel like I might have dialed in the alignment better than I had it before. And the main thing I'm feeling for is with this new control arm is, does the front end roll side to side as much as it did before? Feels pretty good so far. Oh yeah, when you lean on it in the corners a little bit, you feel it just stiffen up. That's nice. Front end definitely feels a lot more planted and stiffer. Oh yeah, just doing a little slalom right here, left and right. The car stays so flat, whereas before it was pitched side to side, especially on the front corners, because so much weight over the front axle with this VR6. But it stays super flat. Oh yeah, that handles good. Feels good, I like it. All that effort the last 2 weeks in the garage is worth it. Definitely get a sense that roll bar's added a little bit of NVH. noise, vibration, harshness, because it's connected everything together a little bit more. But it's not bad. I mean, it was already kind of loud to begin with, and a little, lots of vibrations through the cabin. Hear that? It's very loud in here. Alright, I'm gonna find a good place to pull over and stop. I'm gonna stick the microphone on the back bumper, see if we can get some good sound clips. Now guys, listen carefully to the next sound clip. I want you to let me know in the comments if you think it's misfiring at low RPM. Could also be the license plate on the back. I know that's a little loose, but yeah, curious to hear your thoughts. Oh yeah, it's so confident through the corners now. It did not feel like this before. This new front sway bar working a treat. All right, there you have it, folks. Wrapping up another episode on the Rabbit. Apologies again for it taking so long. This job took me like 2 weeks, but I was determined to get it finished before I published the video. Big shout out to Autotech for that front sway bar, Autoworx for the ball joint extenders, and eBay special on the tie rod flip kit. As always, I really hope you're enjoying the content. Please consider subscribing. Drop me a comment. You know I love to chat in the comments. Give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. And yeah, I'm just super stoked that this car is coming along. All that work I just did last 2 weeks is paying off. It's starting to drive really nicely. It's handling well. You can start to throw it into some corners a little bit. Relying on the power from that VR6, it is very fun to drive. Join me next time. We'll be doing some transmission upgrades. I'm not going to spoil it, but got a few mods to go on the transmission. Hopefully she'll make the shifting a lot crisper too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.